Hey, how's it going? This is Professor Krspo, and this is Music Production 101. So, just a little bit about me. I've been producing music for the last 12 years. I've been DJing and playing my own music live for the past year. I've been paid to travel and play my music, and I have an associate's degree in audio engineering and music production. So, what's this course about? Well, this is Music Production 101, but specifically for EDM. So, week 1, we're going to get started with software, just getting everything going, getting your interface started, understanding signal flow, Ableton Live basics. So, we're going to go over all of Live. We'll get into like little hotkeys. We'll get started on like drum racks, connecting your MIDI controller, using samples, some fun stuff. That's week 1. Week 2 is all about audio. So we're going to go over all the different audio, how to connect a mic and instrument. So if you play an instrument or you want to sing, we'll talk about how to record that. We'll talk about how to manipulate audio, stretch it, time warp it, all the different kinds of fun stuff you can do with that. Week 3, we'll talk about a little bit of mixing stuff, so getting into gain, levels, audio effects, compression, EQ, delay, reverb, and just the basic how to get a good mix, what makes a good mix, what to look for. Week 4 is now more moving towards the production, the art kind of part of it. So it's all about arrangement, BPM, feel, like what makes like every BPM or every genre unique, why genres like certain BPMs, choosing the right sound, how to build suspense and tension in your song, creating interesting drum loops, and also programming chords using MIDI. Week 5 is all about synthesis and making your own sounds. So this is where the course really starts to get in-depth into EDM, because EDM is all about making your own unique sounds. We talk about synthesis. We talk about all the different synthesizers, sound design, some great VSTs, some free VSTs that are awesome, some paid synthesizers that are awesome. We'll talk about saturation, loudness, widening, layering, all that fun stuff. Week 6, again, EDM specific. This is all about creating a drop, call and response, genre specific, drop techniques, sounds, etc. Week 7, we're getting more, now we have like a finished song or getting close to a finished song. So we're going to get back into the mixing, chopping vocals. We'll talk about sculpting frequencies and tones with EQ, FX. And then finally, week 8, we're going to polish your song up. It should be pretty much done. It's going to be mixing and mastering, cutting out those like little resonant peaks that could be annoying on certain speakers, and then clipping and limiting to get your stuff nice and fat and loud. So at the end of the 8 weeks, you'll basically be able to go from not even knowing how to start a DAW to being able to finish a song and put it out for the world to listen to and enjoy. All right, guys, so we're going to get started week 1 with the first thing, which is getting our DAW downloaded, our digital audio workstation. So let's go to the computer. All right, so we're going to get started with downloading your DAW, your digital audio workstation. So you're going to go to ableton.com right here in the top right corner, try for free. Hit the download if you're on Windows. Boom. All that stuff. Really fun. Once you get your DAW downloaded, the next step is going to be for you to get your interface set up. So there's a bunch of different kinds of interfaces you can get. All you really need is something like a Scarlett 2i2. So like 2 inputs, 2 outputs. The inputs is like, that's going to be your mics, your guitars, anything you want to like plug, any kind of instrument you want to plug into your DAW. This is going to be your way for your computer to communicate with, live instruments and microphones and all that kind of stuff. So you need it. It's very necessary. My favorite's a Scarlett 2i2. Super easy. I had one in the past. It was awesome. Great sound. So basically to connect that, you would get it. connect it via USB to your computer. And then if you have speakers or if you have headphones, there's a headphone jack in the front for headphones. And then if you have speakers, you can plug your speakers into the back jacks. So yeah, if you're using speakers or anything, it's important to just turn them off first before you unplug your interface from your computer. And then when you're like turning everything on, make sure everything's plugged in and then turn your speakers on. If you don't, you're going to hear like a loud pop, and sometimes it'll ruin your speakers, and it's not good for your ears. It's no fun. So just a little disclaimer. So after you get your interface set up and you get your Ableton downloaded, we'll go back to the computer here. We can close out of this. We can launch Ableton. And this is where all the magic is. So yours might not look the same. This is my like little startup template I got. So I have just the stuff I like, but I'll go to basically nothing here. Okay, so if you want to make a track, oh, sorry, no, I'm getting ahead of myself here. So first things first, we got to connect your audio interface to your DAW. So the first thing is going to be your output, and yours is going to say Scarlett 2i2 or whatever interface you have. Mine's usually the Zen Studio. We're doing some screen recording, so it's different. And then your input device. This is only really needed if you're using like a mic or an instrument. If you need to like record something, but then you just click, use the same one. You can always configure. If they don't show up, just hit input configure. But yeah, so then you're started, you're good, you got your DAW downloaded, you got your interface hooked up, you're all connected and ready to go and make awesome tunes. So first things first, we're just going to go and create a track. We'll create a MIDI track, so that's Control or Command Shift T. So now we have our cool little MIDI track. You can change the color of it by right-clicking. I like blue. It's a good color for because we're going to do some drums here. So I'll show you the drum rack, which is one of the Ableton stock instruments. It's the drum rack. So we'll go into the drum rack, drag it over, and there you go. Now this is a drum rack, just like that. So drum racks are cool because you can just drag like whatever samples you want, essentially, into them, and yeah, they sound really cool. So I like that kick. Just drag that in there. And then I get like a clap. Or like a... There you go. Let's do a snare. Drag that in there. So now we have this kick and this snare in our little drum rack. So the next thing I want to talk to you guys about is hooking up a MIDI device. So this is an example. This is like a drum pad device. This is great for like recording drums. You can use a keyboard to do it as well. So if you're like short on money and you can only get one or the other, get a keyboard because then you could play keys and do the drums. But these are really cool if you can get a chance to get one. So we're just going to record like a quick little drum pattern. So the first thing we got to do before we do anything is figure out what tempo we want to do. So that's going to be up here. You can tap it in if you want. You can like drag it around if you want. Sometimes what's cool to do is like, I'll record something. Oh, this is the metronome too. So this is also important if you want to be able to hear what the tempo is. You need that metronome. So this is your pause and play button. So if you want to play, there's nothing there except so that's just the metronome playing. But if you want to stop it, you can hit the space bar too. Pause, play. That's usually the way to go, space bar. But yeah, so this is the record button. So let's record some drums with the drum rack. So here we go. So yeah, we got a little drum thing going, but this is an EDM course, so let's make this more like EDM vibes. Not so weird. I don't know what that drum pattern was that I made. Let's do like some like 120. 4 on the floor, maybe. Some 4 on the floor. Cool. So now we got that. It's just basically a 1 bar, not even a full bar loop. So we can crop it. We can just crop the clip here. And now we have our little... So we got our little loop. We can duplicate this with Command D, or we can just use the loop function in Ableton, which is really cool, and just loop this little section. So that's really cool. If you want. Let's do both. Let's do like a mixture of both. So now we have our little fun thing. Let's get some hi-hats going. So we can just duplicate, because we need a drum rack again. So let's just duplicate with Command D. Just hit Command D to duplicate. If you need to delete the track, you just hit delete, obviously. So let's delete these samples, and let's throw like a little hi-hat in here. Throw a hi-hat in here. Yep. Cool. So we got our hi-hat. I need it. Okay. So we can use Command U, which is like quick quantize, really useful stuff to make our hi-hats nice and clean. Cool. So yeah, we're rocking. This is like, we're ready to play Coachella, I think. This is some poppin' stuff. Okay. So that's how to use the drum rack and how to make a little beat, I guess. This is very like, this is a 4 on the floor beat. So that means there's 4 kick patterns that you're going to see. And the important thing is with this beat, again, so you want your kick on the 1, 2, 3, 4, all the even notes. So if you know anything about music and 4/4, there's going to be 4 beats. So we're on like 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the snare is going to come in on 2 and 4. That's the backbeat. And then on the off beats, playing the 8th notes, we got the hi-hat. So it'll be 1 and, 2 and. So you'll hear that here. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So diving into a little bit of music theory that I wasn't planning on doing necessarily, but it's all part of the game. You got to know it all a little bit, or know a little bit of everything. We got our funky house beat, rocking and rolling. So we want to add more stuff to this probably, right? One way we could do that, we could do Command T. So that's an audio track. If we want to do some like audio, like record some vocals or drop some vocals in, chord guitar, whatever, you know, synth, whatever you want to do. Let's do some sampling. So let's do Control T again to do another MIDI track, and then I'm gonna show you guys another one of Ableton's awesome stock instruments that you get with the program is Sampler, and it's if you're familiar with the Native Instruments Contact, this is like the same thing basically as Contact. So it's a similar thing, just using samples and sample manipulation to create all kinds of sounds. There's like tons of different presets in here, like you know, some weird stuff. But anyway, but let's just open the regular sampler, and then so notice this is, you know, your categories here. So you have all your sounds. If you want to like search things that way, if you're like, oh, I'm looking for a certain sound, oh, I need some piano keys. This is going to give you all the piano keys across all the different instruments. So there's all these different instruments, and some of them have keys, some of them don't. But if you want to find piano keys, you just hit this, and then boom, it shows you all of them throughout all the different instruments, which is great. Drums, we already talked about the drum rack, but here's all the different kits that are just stock. I kind of showed you guys earlier how to pull. This is from all my samples, so I just pulled something from a sample pack that I bought. So you can do that down here. You can also add folders from wherever. So I just have this going from my sample thing, which is on my hard drive, that I just keep all my samples on. So I have all my samples. I have all like the sample packs I've ever bought on here, which is it's cool. So yeah, back to sampling. So we got our sampler. Ableton also comes live if you don't have your own if you don't have like a sample library built up and you didn't record a bunch of your own samples like I did. You can go to Ableton samples. They have all these. I think I made these, but they have all these cool like little. There's a ton of them. There's so many. It's like so many. You gotta. Jesus, that's annoying. You got to take your time and just go through all those because there's like a ton of them, and a lot of them are really gas. So let's play our track and let's see if any of these kind of fit. I like to do that. I like to play what I have while kind of listening to samples. Sometimes it helps. So how's it on? It's pretty cool. Oh yeah. This is where it's at right here. No, we're not doing that. Okay. Tons of samples, see what I mean? Like that could be kind of cool. Oh yeah. That's the one. That's the one. We're going to go with that. Cool. All right, so we got our sample. We're going to drop it in the sampler. So you might be thinking like, why use the sampler? Why not just like drop it in? Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, it's a little loud, but I mean, that is pretty cool, but the cool thing about the sampler is it allows you to like really manipulate it. And now I have this sample like all across the keyboard, different octaves. So this is a lower version of it. I can go higher. This is a higher version of it. We can like reverse it even. This reverse button. We can have it sustain and just kind of keep looping. You can have it loop back and forth, so going like from reverse to normal. So that's kind of cool. There's different stuff you can do, and it's like I said, it's all mapped to the keyboard. And you can change whatever the root note is. So I don't really know what the root note of this analog flow is, but let's just say it's C. Then so this is the root note, and then I go up an octave to the next C. You get it higher or lower if you go down an octave. So that's the cool thing about sampler. If you have like some vocals, you can put them through it and like change the octave and pitch, and actually play it along like with a melody line maybe, or the possibilities are endless with the sampler. So I think the important thing now we need to do is record some sampler stuff. So let's record some sampler stuff. So oh, it's pretty funky. So, but the assignment for this week is we're going to create like an 8-bar loop. So we would take something like this and double it and then try to make something, you know, that flows and maybe even like like a loop. Like loop is very loopy, you know. Yeah. So we can use other instruments too. We're not like stuck with just using this. I mean, this is why we have Ableton, because we have all these different options. So I mean, we have like things like analog, which is just really cool. Just two oscillator basic synth. So I don't want to get too much into synthesis. We're going to get into that down the road. But analog is a very basic synth that kind of models analog synths. So there's all kinds of different. So. Maybe this might be cool to like add in here. Let's just loop this little. So I'm cutting this stuff with Command E, which is like it just cuts the whatever clip you have. It just cuts it right wherever your little cursor is. Cool. So then now we have our little like funky little beat. You get the picture. Yeah, let's add just like a little bit of space right here. So yeah, that's analog, super cool, really fun to play with. And then we have Collision, which is the next one in this Ableton overview of instruments. So Collision's pretty cool. I've never really been too big of a fan of it, but you can get some really interesting stuff with it. It's it uses this like, it's like, I'm trying to figure out how to explain it. It's like resonator. So there's different kinds that you can use. So there's like, you can have stuff sound like it's like going through a tube, or have it going through a beam. Like you can get some really interesting stuff. I can't say I've really dove super deep into Collision, but I know that it's got some great uses. I mean, the presets are pretty cool. I've used some of the presets before. I think I've actually used this one before. Yeah, so I mean, you can get some really cool stuff. They have all kinds of like xylophones and mallets, guitars. They have a pad. I didn't know they had a pad. I mean, that's pretty nice. It's really setting the mood. Yeah, so Collision's great. Drum synth is pretty much the same as the drum rack. I mean, yeah, it's very similar to the drum rack. Electric piano. I mean, I don't really think I need to go too much into that. External instrument is really cool. So if you have a synth like I do, you can like hook it up through this. So you can use like MIDI to control your synth, your like outboard synth. So you don't have to like play the same thing over and over again. You can like play it once, record it, then have it like playing over and over again through your synth. And then you can like tweak your synth. That's the way I use it. It's super useful. This is the way it looks. So the way to use it, you would just map your whatever your synth is. So mine's the Moog Matriarch. I just map it. And then your audio. Oh man, see, this is the problems because we're screen recording, so my interface isn't coming up. But normally my interface would come up, and I would just hit 5 and 6, which is where my synth is hooked up to. On your thing, you would hook it up to like 1 and 2 on the Scarlett 2i2, or just 1 if you're going mono. But yeah, and then you have gain, and then if there's latency or whatever, you can do this to counteract it, which is really cool. I've never had to use that, but I think maybe if your computer's a little older, you might need to use that. So that's that one. Then you got Impulse. Impulse is cool. It's like a drum machine, like an old school kind of like 808 style like drum machine. So it's you just drop your samples in, similar to the drum rack, how I did with the drum rack, where I just grabbed a sample. Do that, you just drop it in here, and then you can like transpose it, stretch it. Again, I haven't used this one too much, but there's definitely some like good uses and possibilities here. And like, you know, maybe that could be a challenge or something. One week we'll do like make something with Impulse or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But there's all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of like fun kits. Obviously they have the 808 kit, the dub kit with the delay. So, oh yeah, there's like effects on here, which is pretty cool. Transposition, you can transpose stuff, which you can do in the normal drum rack too. All right, so next up, we're gonna do one of my favorites, Operator. So drag it in. So Operator is an FM synthesizer. We're gonna get into all that stuff later on, but basically it means that all these oscillators, A, B, C, and D, this is the different oscillators. They all kind of affect each other in the sound. So see as I turn up the B, it affects the sound overall. So it's cool. And then the cool thing about this is you can like draw in the harmonics. That's when things start to get really fun. There's also a pitch envelope, which is cool. So yeah, so that's Operator. That's one of my favorites. I really like this one. I just use it a lot of times just for like sub. I'll just use one oscillator. Maybe use a second one just to kind of mess with it and make it not so perfect, but one oscillator with a little pitch envelope on there. It's nice and fat. So that's Operator. Next up, we already talked about the sampler. That's fun. Simpler. We kind of already talked about simpler too in a way, because the drum rack it runs simpler. So this right here, that thing that we dropped our sample into, these are all like simplers. So it basically just, you get either a one shot, you can make it loop like a classic drum machine, or you can slice it up. I usually just stick to the one shots. So that's simpler. And then we got Tension, which is the string modulator, the string synthesizer. So if you want to do some fat strings, you probably want to use Tension. There's Tension, right? Yeah. Yeah, so there's Tension. But yeah, there's all sorts of like string samples on here that are great. Cello. There's a quartet. It's always dope. I'll have a little quartet. Anyway, yeah, so that is tension. Super cool. And then next up is wavetable. So wavetable is the wavetable synthesizer. So you get two oscillators, two fat oscillators. You can put them together. Or you can just use one. There's also a sub, which is cool. Fatten your sound up a little bit. So this is kind of like Serum. If you ever heard of Serum or Vital, they're both wavetable synths. And so yeah, that is what wavetable is. It's Ableton's wavetable synth. And if you want, you can even like put the use the instrument rack with a wavetable, and then go into audio effects, and then go and figure out all the audio effects that are in Serum and just add those to wavetable. So you could have like an EQ. You could have like a filter. You could add saturation. You know what I'm saying? You could just add all the different, and then you could basically make your own Serum if you don't want to buy Serum. Or you could just download Vital, which is free. So yeah, that's wavetable. So we've gone over all the Ableton stock instruments. There's a lot of potential here. My personal favorites: drum rack, super essential. The operator is pretty cool. Sampler, another great one. But I've definitely like dabbled in all of them a little bit, but those are definitely my favorites. So with that being said, we've used Sampler, we used the drum rack, we even used analog a little bit, but let's use operator because it's like my third favorite or my second favorite, and it's great for subs, and we need a sub for our track. So let's do that. Let's make a sub with operator. So we got operator. I'm not even going to mess with this. This is literally what operator looks like when you open it. Now, there's also some bass presets that are great, like really good. I use this hip-hop sub bass quite a bit wherever it is. I don't see it anywhere. But anyway, there is one in here. I could search for it if I want to, but I don't really care that much. There's a hip hop sub bass. It's cool, but right now we're just gonna make our own from scratch, just using a sine wave and one oscillator. Okay, very simple stuff. Gotta keep it simple. Sick. All right, cool. So now we got our operator sub. I already did this earlier. This is like we've had to redo this a bunch of times. So we're just going to use this one up here. But let's go through what I did here. So we got some saturation here, which is one of the audio effects that we're going to go over next week. You can find it in Driving Color, saturation. So saturation's super useful. Basically, all it does is it adds harmonics. It adds volume is a good way to look at it too, because it adds harmonics, which makes things kind of seem more loud, more 3D kind of sounding. So I'll kind of show you what that does here if I go. Now, I'm not really doing enough of it on this bass for you to see it, because remember how I said subtle stuff goes a long way. If I did say that. If I didn't, I'm saying it now. Subtle stuff goes a long way in music. So this bass, as is, very little saturation. And so it just shows up as one little noob here, one little knob. But you'll see as I turn the saturation up, all these other knobs just popped up. So that's what saturation does. Notice that the main knob didn't really maybe it got a little louder, just naturally. It might have got a little louder, but all these other knobs got added. So that's just the way to look at saturation. Look at it. If you have like a sound, you're like, oh, I want to make this a little louder, a little bit more 3D. Add some saturation to it. It works great on vocals, works great on like bass, works great on drums even. You can make some really cool sounding drums with saturation. But be careful though with drums, because sometimes if depending on the samples, like if it's the sample I give you, you probably don't need to do it, because a lot of the samples that I'm going to give you already have saturation on them. But if it's like a sample that you make or something, then yeah, saturation is great on drums. And then so the next thing in the thing is going to be the amp. And so the amp, you can find it again under drive and color. It's more the color portion. You can do drive too in it, but it's more color. And it's going to be right here is the amp. And so notice I added just a little saturation. So that did it. We saw what that did to the nub. Where's my nub? So it didn't do much to the nub. The nub's kind of the same. But when you add saturation with the amp, all of a sudden the nub transforms into something more similar to what we saw before when we cranked the knob on the saturation. So this stuff. And you might be asking me, like, why is this important? Like, why is all this, like, this low mid frequency information so important? Because this is the stuff that you can hear on crappy speakers, like this poolside speakers, or your friend's iPhone speakers, or even some crappy headphones that people have. Like, this is what comes through. So it's important to, if you're going to have like a sub bass, to have some of this there, because what's going to end up happening a lot of times is people listen to your sub on speakers that don't have a sub. So they don't get any of this. They're not going to hear any of this. Everything from 100, everything from like 90 down is gone. So everything from here down is gone. They only hear this. So unless you don't want to have a bass in those songs and like in their headphones, you got to do something about that. So this is what I'm doing about that. It's all this stuff here. Very important. All right, guys, so that was week 1. We went over everything from getting your DAW and your interface set up to, how to make a little loop. The assignment this week is for you to create an 8-bar loop using the drum rack and the sampler. If you want, you can use operator as well, like I did, or any other of the instruments. Actually, let's do that too. So you have to use drum rack, sampler, and one of the other instruments, any of them, it doesn't matter. And you're going to create an 8-bar loop and send it to me, and I'm going to grade it and give you guys all the feedback you want. If you have any questions about the assignment or anything else, let me know. I'm going to send you guys some samples and stuff in the course materials. So there's going to be some things for you guys to work with extra on top of what's already in Ableton, which is a ton of stuff. But I know I use some third-party samples here, so I'm going to include some stuff for you guys in the weekly assignment stuff. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys' projects and listening to them and giving you feedback. And yeah, welcome. This is going to be a great journey.